Modern wood preservatives promise protection measured in years. But, Viking timber preservation delivered protection measured in centuries. Across Scandinavia and the North Atlantic, ship planks, harbour pilings, roof beams and house posts have survived saltwater, freezing winters, insects and long neglect without chemical treatment. This durability was not accidental and not the result of superior trees alone. It came from a preservation method that worked with wood's internal structure rather than trying to seal it from the outside. That method still outperforms modern products because it removes the conditions rot needs instead of masking them. Why Vikings focused on changing the wood itself rather than coating its surface. Rot is not a surface problem. It begins inside wood, where moisture lingers, oxygen cycles, and nutrients remain available. Modern products often form a barrier that cracks, peels, or traps moisture beneath the surface. Vikings avoided this trap by conditioning timber internally and controlling how it interacted with air and water for its entire life. So their preservation method was not just a single treatment, but rather a sequence that actually began before the tree was even cut and, continued through decades of careful maintenance. Now, how did winter felling eliminate decay at, the biological level? Vikings would cut trees during winter dormancy. This was a deliberate biological decision, you see. Sap levels are at their lowest in winter, and sap contains sugars that fungi and bacteria feed on. By harvesting when those sugars were minimized, Vikings effectively starved decay organisms before construction even began. Dendrochronological evidence, time and again, confirms winter felling in long-lasting Viking structures. A modern application involves sourcing dormant season timber for posts and beams, or, simply allowing sap-rich wood to season long enough for nutrients to diminish naturally. Why slow seasoning mattered more than any preservative. Fresh wood absorbs moisture quickly and honestly rather unevenly. Vikings avoided this by seasoning timber slowly, often for years. Logs were kept intact, stacked off the ground, shaded from direct sun and exposed to steady airflow. This gradual drying stabilized the grain, reduced internal stresses and collapsed capillary pathways that later draw water inward. Modern kiln drying removes moisture quickly but leaves microfractures that invite water back in. Air seasoning lumber patiently remains one of the most effective preservation steps available today. How controlled charring blocked rot where it always begins? One of the most powerful Viking techniques was controlled charring. Timber ends exposed to moisture were passed briefly through flame until the surface carbonized. This char layer repelled water, discouraged insects, and restricted oxygen penetration. It also, hardened the surface against wear. The goal was carbonization, not burning. To apply this today, you would lightly char the base of fence posts or ground contact beams, brush off any loose carbon, and then prepare the surface for oil treatment before installation. Why pine tar outperformed modern sealants for centuries? Pine tar was the cornerstone of Viking preservation. Distilled slowly from resin-rich pine in low oxygen conditions, it penetrated deeply when applied warm. Pine tar filled internal capillaries, reducing water uptake while remaining flexible through temperature swings. Unlike modern sealants, it did not crack, peel, or trap moisture. Viking ships were recoated regularly, building protection layer by layer. For modern use, pine tar can be warmed and thinned with raw linseed oil, then brushed into dry wood during warm weather to ensure deep absorption. Now, let's consider how the Vikings, instead of simply accepting rot as an unavoidable fate, actually redesigned the way their structures made contact with the ground. You know, rot almost always begins right at the soil line. The Vikings, well, they absolutely refused to place untreated wood directly into the earth. Instead, their posts would rest on stone pads, or sometimes on rubble footings, or even on compacted gravel beds that would help drain water away. And when, really, burial of wood was unavoidable, the Vikings would first char and tar the wood to help protect it from decay. Archaeological evidence shows that Viking fence posts have survived for centuries longer than modern posts set in concrete. A modern builder can actually replicate this by elevating posts above grade using stone or gravel, and by making sure that water never pools at the base. So, why did breathable construction defeat hidden moisture damage? Well, it allowed trapped moisture to escape, preventing rot and decay from taking hold. Viking buildings were designed to breathe. Moisture that entered could escape through gaps, permeable materials, and natural finishes. This prevented the stagnant dampness that causes hidden rot. Modern synthetic barriers often block vapor movement, trapping moisture inside walls and beams. Using breathable finishes such as oils, waxes and lime-based materials allows wood to regulate moisture naturally and, remain stable across seasons. Now, you see, lime quietly supported timber longevity without actually sealing it, which is rather fascinating when you think about it. Lime mortar and plaster really played a critical supporting role, Lime creates an alkaline environment that's hostile to fungal growth, while still remaining permeable to moisture. Timber framed into lime masonry benefited from this chemical resistance without being suffocated. But modern cement-based materials, well, they trap moisture and actually accelerate decay at contact points. Choosing lime-based materials around wood remains, one of the most effective and honestly overlooked preservation strategies. Why, you might wonder, was maintenance treated as preservation rather than simply repair? Vikings, well, they never assumed protection was permanent. Ships were hauled out every year and carefully retreated. Roof beams were inspected and retarred, and exposed timber was always maintained before any damage could occur. This discipline prevented small issues from becoming structural failures. Modern builders often rely on a single application and expect permanence. Adopting scheduled inspections and periodic retreatment, really aligns with Viking practice and dramatically extends lifespan. Why does this Viking method still outperform modern products? Well, modern preservatives attempt to block moisture completely, which is, quite frankly, an impossible task over decades of exposure. The Viking method, on the other hand, accepted moisture as inevitable and focused on, controlling its movement and impact. By combining winter harvesting, slow seasoning, controlled charring, penetrating tar treatments, intelligent foundations, breathable construction, and consistent maintenance, Vikings actually removed the conditions rot requires. That is precisely why their wood endured for centuries, and why this method honestly remains superior even today. If historically proven knowledge that still works matters to you, then do consider subscribing to Ancient Know-How. Share this guide with fellow history and survival enthusiasts, and help keep these enduring preservation methods alive for generations to come.